One of the things I love most about Hungry Root is how it solves dinner without sacrificing quality or taste. Last week, I got their classic linguine meatballs in my box, a healthy Italian-inspired dish that came together in minutes and made the whole kitchen smell like Sunday dinner. What makes Hungry Root so helpful is that they take care of the hard part. They fill your cart based on your preferences, suggest meals, and even adjust over time to fit your family's tastes. Whether you're gluten-free, dairy-free, or just trying to eat better, they'll tailor everything from recipes to groceries to your needs. I love knowing the food is clean, no artificial junk, no weird additives, and the brands they carry are ones I trust. Hungry Root has helped me avoid last-minute takeout and stick to my health goals without the stress of meal planning. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box plus a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg and use code Dr. Meg. That's hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg, code Dr. Meg to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg, code Dr. Meg. Nearly half of all U.S. parents are still helping their adult kids financially.
1 in 3 young adults under 35 are still living with their parents, right? So it's hard for them to leave. And so when I see that and I think about my own kids, I wanted them to have a pathway.
This is Parenting Great Kids with Dr. Meg Meeker.
Welcome to PGK, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's funny, when your publicist sent a letter to us and I saw the name of your book, I'm like, okay, that's it. Future Millionaire. I want my kids to be future millionaires so they can take care of me, or at least put me in a good nursing home.
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. So anyway, well, let's get started with the big picture. Why are so many young adults today struggling to be financially independent?
Yes. Well, if you look at our society, right, we have this American dream that we've held on to for decades, where we've told people, go to college, get a good job, buy a house. And that pathway is not available to young people today. It's not available to Gen Z who are growing up right now, that are anywhere from 13 to 27 years old. And why is that? It's because of inflation, because we have a housing crisis where the cost of housing has outpaced wages. And then also on top of that, they are straddled with student loans. So that makes it very difficult for them to ever move out of their parents' house, right? That means you're never getting your podcast studio. You're never getting your knitting room, right? Like you're never getting out of your basement.
Yeah.
And so they need a new plan. They need a new vision and a new step-by-step plan that will actually work in this economy where they can actually get financially free and also build wealth, not just be able to move out of their parents' house, but actually live comfortably, pay off those student loans, and enjoy their lives. Because that's one thing Gen Z is very committed to. They're like, listen, I'm going to enjoy myself because I realize we've got one life. And I agree with them.
Yeah.
But how can they do that? How can they have the money to do that without their parents' money?
It is overwhelming because I've got adult children. And, I know the cost of housing is unbelievable. My son and his wife, newly married, live in Colorado, thought we'll go get a 2-bedroom house, outside of Denver. And they were shocked. $1 million for 2-bedroom and not even a great neighborhood. And he said, forget it. I mean, it's just, and they work and they have decent jobs. And I thought, these poor young adults, this is so hard. So what you're saying at the outset of the show is if you've got a 25 or 30-year-old who's really having a hard time launching and getting life together, there's hope for that kid, right?
There's hope for them. And what I would say too is, that if you have, a 13-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 17-year-old, like this book, this new plan, like they can be taught this new plan and be ready for it so that they approach college with this plan in mind. And then they graduate from college knowing what their strategy is, right? Knowing that it's not just going to be, I'm going to graduate and a good job is going to be handed to me. A lot of college graduates are working at coffee shops. They're working at restaurants. They're not able to get like full-time, well-paying jobs. And so they're sort of putting together a salary from, Ubering and DoorDash and all of these things.
Right.
And so for some of them, the job is not available, right? And even if they have a job, the job is not providing enough to be able to move out of their parents' house.
Right.
So yes,
and
this is for everyone.
Yeah, this is very concerning because we're talking about, kids who graduated college. Let's talk about your book because I could go off in a lot of different directions. I have so many questions. Your new book is about helping teens become future millionaires. So what inspired you to write it? Why now?
Yes. Well, because of some of the stats that we just shared, I'm 43. When I read that stat that 2/3 of adults up to 43 years old cannot live on their own, right? Like without their parents' support is absolutely bananas.
Yeah.
And, 1 in 3 young adults, are still living under 35 are still living with their parents, right? So it's hard for them to leave. And so when I see that and I think about my own kids, I wanted them to have a pathway. When I was a kid, I grew up low income. So my family did not have money and there was a lot of financial struggle in our house. But I had some friends who were middle class. I had a family member who was upper middle class. So I got to see people with money and more money than us. And I would say like, oh, wow, they don't have any of these problems that we have because they have money. So I learned at a very young age that like money is the name of the game. It's important. And so I would walk around asking everyone, like I would be like, what do your parents do? I always wanted to know, like, how do I make money? And so I, figured out, and what I was told is like, go to school, get good grades, graduate, you're going to get a great job. Well, I did all of that. I went to law school as well, got good grades, graduated, 2008 recession. And so not a lot of jobs available, certainly not jobs that could help me pay off my massive pile of student loans. And so I went solo. I became an entrepreneur right out of law school and started my own practice. And that enabled me to make 6 figures, right? And make a very comfortable salary, even though there were not a lot of jobs available. And so I want kids to not only, entrepreneurship isn't the only pathway. It is a faster pathway to becoming a millionaire than working a full-time job. But your job is part of the formula. So it's just how we approach our careers, how we approach making money, right? And recognizing that we have way more power to earn more than we think. I think sometimes society wants us to think like, oh, making money is really hard. It really isn't. It's just about having a strategy and making sure that you have a focus of like, how much do I want to earn? I think so much of personal finance focuses on what to do with the paycheck once you got it, like how to chop it up and how much to save and how much to invest in all of these things. But we don't talk enough about earning more, which is essential,
Well, this makes me think that you need to start this process before college because so many college students, I hear this from parents all the time. I want my kids to be happy. Therefore, when they go to college, they need a college degree. And I want them to study what makes them happy and to find their passion and just follow it. That's great. The problem is if you love English literature and then you get through college and you graduate with a degree in English literature, you're really narrowing your market for jobs. So before college, what would you tell a sophomore in high school, a freshman in high school about how they should plan for future income or earning income versus college? I mean, what's your path? What's your path for a 13-year-old?
Yes. So one, I think passion is part of it. I think it's important to know what you enjoy. And so one of the things that I recommend is first and foremost, like understand you are the asset, right? So I started with no network, no resources, no money. My family didn't have money to give me. They had lots of encouragement, but no money, Yeah. And so that I was starting with nothing. And so what I did have though was myself, my own natural skills, my own talents that I was born with, right? My own experiences and sort of life story, right? And so I could say, okay, what am I naturally good at? What was I good at even from when I was a kid? And for me, I used to get in my report card, I always got A's. I was always a good student, but I would get a report that would always say Rachel talks too much in class, right? So I always got in trouble for talking too much.
But now you have a podcast. That's good.
There you go. And I get paid to talk now.
That's right.
So there's clues in our childhood pointing us towards what we're good at. And so what I recommend is that if there's something that you have a natural skill towards, how can you double down on that, right? So like my son, Jackson, he's about to turn 12 years old. When like the TV and the Wi-Fi and whatever else is not communicating. He's like, Mom, give it to me. I mean, at 8 years old, I'm like, how do you know how to do this? I've never seen your father teach you and I don't know how to do it,
Yeah.
but he just has a natural affinity, right? And so like he's winning robotics competitions and like that's how his brain works.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to steer him towards those kinds of professions, right? And right now, he's like asking me if he could do this side hustle. There's a website where you can play video games and get paid to like test out new video games that he wants to do. So it's like, it's finding something that matches your skill set. But of course, it needs to be marketable skills. So I highly recommend when you're going to college, you could choose, 18th century English literature. I don't know what your plan is to do with that, right? Or you could take a writing course and get really good at writing, and then you can come out and get a job as a copywriter, And so it's like something that is, my husband studied architecture for a while in college. And so coming out knowing how to draft plans, great. That's a skill you can sell, right? You can sell that on your own. You don't even need to have a job to sell that. Mm-hmm. In the book, I profile a story from a young woman who she bought a home by 19 years old. She was a homeowner. And what she did was she went to community college. She studied photography. She came out of community college, started her own photography business. How I met her is she took all the pictures of my kids,
Right, yeah.
And so she did family portraits and made good money as an entrepreneur and was able to buy her own home at 19 years old. Right. And so now she rents it out and she's traveling the world, still doing her photography business. And so there is a pathway, but I think marketable skills, you want to leave college with like, what can I do that I could sell? Right. Mm-hmm. When I left law school, I knew how to practice law. So I was able to do that on my own, even though there weren't jobs available. Right. And go get clients for that. So I think that is one of the keys is know yourself really well, understand what you're good at and try to find things that align with that. Mm-hmm. And then also add marketable skills to your repertoire when you're in college so that can be part of your formula that's allowing you to make money.
I mean, it can be tough as a parent because, maybe parents went sort of the straight and easy route. I did that with medical school. 16 years old, I decided that's what I want to do. No plan B, just plan A. And I knew if I just stuck to my plan, I was going to get somewhere and I'd have a guaranteed job. Now that's sort of the chicken way of doing it.
I don't know if it's chicken to do 16 years, many, many years of education to become a doctor.
Yeah. So it is. And I was fortunate because my medical school tuition back in the 80s, believe it or not, was $3,000 a year. And I went to a great medical school. It didn't have all the bells and whistles. It was really a good school. And most of us could earn that money in the summer. So we didn't come out with a whole lot of debt. So this is kind of a big deal. So if you're a parent and you're not really an entrepreneur and you don't really know how to do this, and you've got a 15-year-old, so you would start by saying, okay, what are you really good at? What do you really like? And then start to steer them in the direction of using, or finding how you can market it. Do all kids need to go to college? I mean, to do a good job with creating a business?
I don't think so. Mm-hmm. I do not think so. I think high school for sure, right? And, you could go to college and be more targeted with it. Take business classes, for example. I have friends who went to trade school, but they became plumbers or electricians and they started their own business, being a local plumber, and then hired other plumbers, trained other plumbers. And then before you know it, they've got a multi-million-dollar business that they're passing on, that they can pass on to their kids when they get ready to retire. Even, becoming a doctor. I have lots of doctor friends and several of them have their own practices. That's entrepreneurial, right? That's a skill, right? Being a physician is a skill that you can sell and you don't have to necessarily work for a big corporation to do it. And so that's really, I think, the key. But I think steering kids towards what you see they have a natural affinity for is key. Trying to get them to do what they hate is a waste of your time. All you're doing is bang your head against the wall anyway.
Right.
So my son, I put him in robotics classes. I put him in classes where they learn how to code and learn how to build video games, right? My daughter is super artsy. She loves music. So she's doing lots of music lessons. And I explained to her, hey, you could go and play for someone's party. You could get hired to be the entertainment and play music for a party, right? And maybe you could make X amount of dollars. So I try to give them ideas of how they could take this skill set. She could play piano, she plays guitar, she plays the saxophone, right? It's like, could you take that, you play in a band and make money doing that way? Could you teach other kids, music lessons, right? So there's so many ways that we can monetize our skills. And that's one of the core lessons that is featured in this book, is really teaching kids, if you got a natural skill set, you can charge for it, right?
Yes.
There are people who are looking for that skill, right? Who have a problem that you could solve with that skill, and they will pay you for it.
Well, that alone is great advice for a kid, because particularly a young girl, to learn to be assertive and say, I'm good at this, and what I do deserves to be paid, and to teach them how to advocate for themselves. And I mean, and I love the idea of helping kids have sort of little tiny cottage industries when they're young, mow somebody's lawn. My son had a good friend who did sort of a handyman service every summer in high school. If you need something fixed, I'll come over and fix it. I don't know that he knew how to fix anything, but he went for it and he figured out a way to fix it, and it was great. I mean, and so to teach kids to just try and stick your neck out and be assertive and just sort of go for it and believe in yourself, even if they don't end up doing that for a job long term, those are great lessons for kids to learn. You talk about that the kids need a future millionaire squad, and that people need to be in our kids' corner financially. How do we help them find those people?
Yes. So I think it's just like that, like, what I was mentioning earlier, extracurricular activities that they feel aligned with, getting them, into clubs, different groups. Most of their friends are going to come from school, but how could you steer them into certain activities when they're young that they can find friends who are also interested in that? So, my son has a whole robotic squad, and they came in as the champions of for the whole island, and so now they're going to compete in the international competition, and that's going to be great skills for him to get into engineering school, for example, if that's what he decides to do. I mean, his dream is to build video games, of course, But there are so many stats that show, right? If your kid is a C student and they start hanging out with the A students, they're going to start getting A's, right? If your kid is an A student, they start hanging out with a bunch of C students, they're going to start getting C's, So we are highly impacted by our community. And the worst thing that we could do as parents is try to choose our kids' friends. They are not interested in our opinion. So I think it's about how we're steering them as early as possible, right, into those right communities. And for me, one example is when I was a young teenager, I was in Girl Scouts, and I was obsessed with Girl Scouts, and we were always doing community service, and I loved selling cookies. I mean, that was probably early entrepreneurial skills that I didn't even realize I was getting, because I was highly motivated to sell. I wanted to be a top seller for cookies, and I learned how to ask for the sale, and pitch the cookies and all of that. And so what organizations can you put them in that are available to you in your community that will get them around kids who are also motivated, who are excited to be doing the things that they're doing, who are around certain skill sets, I think that's key. And then the other thing that I do to start to teach my kids about money, so they're thinking about this at a young age, is we pay for grades. So my husband and I, we pay, our rate is kind of expensive, but you could definitely lower it. My husband said this, I think it was a little high, but we pay $100 for every A. We only pay for A's. We don't pay for anything else. So you get $100 for every A. If you get a full sweep of A's, you get $1,000.
Wow.
So so they're highly motivated. They have 3 report cards a year. So they can earn up to $3,000. Now they get straight A's because they figured out, if I get all the A's, I'm getting $1,000. Yeah. So now they get straight A's. And then what we do is we take half of that money, we make them invest it. So we put it in the stock market for them. They each have their own accounts. The other half of it, we let them spend it however they want. And sometimes it's painful to watch. They'll spend it on complete nonsense, and we're horrified, But that's also part of the experience. I'd rather make mistakes with $100 now rather than make, really big expensive mistakes when they get older. Yeah. So that's also how we're starting to give them a foundation of understanding money. And trust me, they don't want to invest that money. They're like, why can't I keep it all? Right. But we show them their account each quarter so they can see it growing. And they're like, oh, there's more than we put in last time. Yes, exactly.
Yes. And that's
so they start to see the point. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. When I'm heading out the door in the summer, whether it's to the farmer's market or just chasing my grandkids around the yard, I don't want to spend 20 minutes on makeup. I want to feel fresh and confident without the full glam routine. And that's why I've been loving Thrive Cosmetics Liquid Lash Extensions Mascara. You've heard me talk about keeping things simple. It glides on effortlessly, gives my lashes that lifted, wide awake look, and best of all, it stays put. No smudging, no flaking, even in the Michigan heat. When I'm ready to take it off, it rinses off with warm water. No tugging, no mess. But here's what makes Thrive really special. For every product you buy, they donate to help communities thrive, whether that's women fighting cancer, survivors of domestic abuse, or those transitioning from homelessness. That kind of heart makes me proud to partner with them. Maximize your look with minimal effort. Go to thrivecosmetics.com/Dr. Meg for 20% off your first order. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/Dr. Meg. We've always tried to make family dinner a priority, but let's be honest, getting the grandkids to open up can be tough. I'd ask, "How was your day?" and get the usual, "Fine." "What'd you do?" "Nothing." But then I found FamGabs, and it completely shifted our conversations. This 70-card deck was created by a child therapist with 16 years of experience, and every question is designed to spark meaningful connection. The first night we used it, my grandson started telling us about something at school we never would have known otherwise. The questions are thoughtful, open-ended, and there are even bonus ones just for parents to help us lead the way when it comes to deeper conversation. Whether your kids are 5 or 12, these cards help bring your family closer. And in a world of distractions, that kind of connection feels more important than ever. Search FamGabs on Amazon and use promo code Dr. Meg Pod during checkout to get 10% off your order. That's FAMGABS on Amazon. Use promo code Dr. Meg Pod and get 10% off your order. As a parent and now grandparent, I know that no two kids learn exactly the same way. That's why I'm so encouraged by what Stride K-12 is offering. It's flexible, personalized learning that truly supports kids where they are. K-12 powered schools are tuition-free online public schools available for grades K through 12. They're accredited, they're engaging, and they give your child the space to grow at their own pace, right from home or anywhere there's internet access. The curriculum is designed to fit individual learning styles, and their state-certified teachers are specially trained to teach online. I love that they're using real tools like interactive tech and hands-on materials, and they even offer social opportunities, extracurriculars, and in-person events. K-12 has over 25 years of experience helping families just like yours. If you're looking for a flexible, supportive way to help your child thrive, this is it. Join the more than 3 million families who have chosen K-12 and empower your student to reach their full potential now. Go to k12.com/Dr. Meg today to find a tuition-free K-12 powered school near you and enroll now. That's the letter K, number 12.com/Dr. Meg. K12.com/Dr. Meg.
Wherever you go, whatever they get into, from chill time to everyday adventures, protect your dog from parasites with Credelio Quattro. For full safety information, side effects, and warnings, visit CredeliaQuattroLabel.com. Consult your vet or call 1-888-545-5973. Ask your vet for Credelio Quattro and visit QuattroDog.com.
A lot of people balk at that. I did the same thing, for our kids. Our youngest is a boy. We have 3 girls and a boy. And the girls were self-starters. I don't think I
Yes.
ever told him to do their homework. Our son was, this is stupid. This is boring. I tried to offer him to pay, for his grades. He said, no, I'm not interested. Well, sophomore year in college, he calls and said, I'm ready. And I said, you're ready for what? He said, I'm ready to study. And he just flew. And so, everybody's motivated by different things. The other
Yes.
thing that I'm paying our granddaughter for is every year she delays getting on social media, we give her $1,000.
Oh, I love that.
she's
What a
hi-
great incentive.
She's highly motivated, and so are her parents. And so, she won't get one till she's 16, which I think is the minimum age. But
I 100% agree. My
yeah,
kids do not have phones. It's not happening.
it's a great way to keep kids away from social media. Pay them.
Yes.
Yes. Because, kids will do that. They want to do that. So anyway,
Incentivize the behavior you want, right? It's exactly what I did with my employees, and that's how I figured out to do it with my kids.
Yeah. Well, it's what we want as people who are employed. The only reason we work, most of it is to make money to keep working. You just don't go out there. You can't support yourself. You're only doing nonprofit work or volunteer work all the time.
Right.
You can't put a roof over your head. Let's talk about your $1 million decisions formula. You have want, intention, now. Now, that sounds really powerful. Can you break that down for us and just give us a few examples?
Yes. So in the book, it's not only just about the actual steps to make money, which is like the whole second half of the book, but the first half is just giving them tools for how to think, right? Mm-hmm. Like how to make their own decisions. So like, how can we teach them how to make better decisions as kids? And so this WIN formula is helping them to like, not just be influenced by society, by their friends, but really be clear for themselves. Like, what do I want? Who am I? And so the formula is WIN, which is a W is for what? What do you actually want? Like really check in with yourself when you're alone, not what your friends are telling you is cool, but what do you actually want to do in this situation? Mm-hmm. And then intention, what is the intention that you are setting, right? Like, how do you want to show up? Is this aligned with the person that you want to be? And then now, what action do you take now, right? Like, what action steps do you need to take right now in order to bring that want, into fruition, setting the intention, right? And showing up as your true self. And so that's really just helping them. It's just a tool to help them analyze their decisions and say, am I doing what my friends are telling me to do, what society tells me to do? Even in some cases, what my parents are pressuring me to do that maybe doesn't align with what is true for me. And how can I separate those two so that I can get clear on making good decisions for myself?
So this is about any decision, not just future decisions, financial decisions, right? As they go through life, what do I want? What's the intention? And what can I do now?
Yes, exactly. And then also one of the things that I teach them to do is keep a decision-making journal, to like take the time maybe once a month to look at what are some key decisions. Look at 3 big decisions you made this month. It could be what you spent your money on. It could be I chose not to show up to this class, or I went to this party and I was, exhausted at work the next day, or I quit my job, right? And look back and say, do I stand by that decision that I made? Do I feel like it was a good decision? Do I regret that decision? Because I think by having a practice, I'm really just trying to teach them the practice, right? Of looking at our decisions and saying, how do we feel about that decision when we have a little distance, right? I splurged on like a fancy outfit, and a week later I'm filled with regret and I wish I still had that money, right? Okay, great. Maybe you could go return that outfit, or if you can't, now you've learned from it, and next time don't get caught up in the store spending your money on things that aren't important to you. Yeah. So it's really just a practice of looking back at your decisions, not all of them, but just maybe some key ones, so that they learn how to make better decisions.
Are kids pretty good at that? I mean, can they do that? I mean, with your own kids, have you seen them do that, where they make a decision and go, oh gosh, that was kind of dumb? They're able to reflect on that and actually learn from that?
Yes, they are. And I think what's key, there's a whole nother section in there about $1 million thoughts. And it's really about saying, okay, I made this decision. I don't feel great about it, but I'm not dumb, right? I made the best decision that I could in the moment. And now that I have certain experience, I'm going to make a different decision in the future. So it's making sure they're not beating up on themselves, that they really analyze their thoughts, especially for girls. Because a lot of us just grow up with a mean girl in our head telling us we're dumb, we're ugly, we're fat, we're this, we're that. And so really looking at those thoughts and saying, is that actually true, right? Where is that coming from? And how can we change it? How can we change the tape playing in our head to say, you're so smart. You're so capable. Yeah, that didn't work out this time, but that's okay. You're going to figure it out next time. Learning to be their own cheerleader, their own coach in their head. And so thought work was something that I learned from a life coach many years ago, and it changed my life. And so really teaching kids how to do thought work, how to shift the thoughts in their head so that, they're not beating up on themselves all the time, because that's going to lower their self-esteem and their confidence. And I want them to have the confidence to try things, try stuff and fail, right? And no, you're not a failure. You tried something. You should celebrate being brave. You should celebrate your courage. And now you've learned something from that failure, right? And now you could do something differently next time. So teaching them just how to reframe their actions that they're taking, like this expectation that they should know everything is just, it makes no sense, right? They know nothing, right?
They know nothing.
So you got to get out there and try things and allow it to just be one big experiment instead of beating yourself up about it.
I love it because I think so many times parents that I encounter they want to protect their kids from bad things. And I understand that they want to protect their kids from being disappointed, feeling like failures. They want their kids' life to be nice and comfortable and good and keep them moving forward. But the truth of the matter is, if you look at successful people, those are people who've fallen down, been beaten up, stand up again, fall down, discouraged, beaten up, and stand up. And, you don't just become successful by having everything go really well for you. I don't know that I've ever met a person. And so really to shift our mindset as parents and say, if I really want my kid to succeed at anything in life, they have to step out. They have to try something they want to do, but they may be terrible at it. Let them be the worst soccer player. Let them try figure skating and they're terrible, but, and parents worry, well, it's going to hurt their self-esteem. But, what hurts them more is not ever trying anything because they're afraid, of what's going to happen. And I think, I love that. So have you, as your kids have grown older or were growing up, what kind of things did you encourage them to do that you knew they might not do really well at? Or were you afraid they were going to fall down and fail, or did you just say, go for it anyway?
Yeah. The funny thing is I was always afraid that they were going to be disappointed, that they were not going to be the starter for this, sports team, that they were not going to make the team, like all of these things. I was afraid of all of it, but I did it anyway because I knew it's not good for them for us to just keep them in a bubble, right? Where they never fail, right? Because then they're going to have an expectation in life that they're never going to fail. And that's just not true. They're definitely going to fail. So let them experience it. And that's where their confidence is actually going to come from, overcoming that. So I basically let them try anything that they were interested in. If they expressed any interest, I would say go for it, even if I thought they were going to be terrible. My kids have tried out for all kinds of teams. Sometimes they've done tryouts and I'm like, there's no way they're going to make the team. And then they make it and shock me, And other times I'm like, I think they maybe will make the team and then they don't make it. I mean, my daughter, she wanted to be on the volleyball team so badly. She loves volleyball. She plays all the time recreationally. She really wanted to be on the school team. She tried out for the school team and she just knew she was going to make it because she played all the time. She sure enough did not make it. And she called me, burst into tears. And of course, I just was encouraging to her that I got off the call and cried because I felt so bad that she was upset. Yeah. But you know what? I mean, literally an hour later, she found out her friend didn't get on either. They commiserated and then they were over it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, why rob her of the opportunity to be disappointed, but also know that she can overcome that?
Well, and also learn that she can fail at something and you love her anyway. Oh, well, it's just volleyball. It's just that. And I think, a lot of times we parents get so caught up in what our kids are doing and succeeding athletically or whatever in high school and even college. 99%, well, from high school going to college, probably 90% of those kids are not going to play a college sport. And even if they do, 99% are not going to be professional athletes.
Yes.
And so I think we need to hold it more loosely.
Yes.
This idea of trying something, and if you fail, you fail. And also it's a great way for kids to learn about their self-esteem that, not getting on the volleyball team, it doesn't define you. I mean, it's just a volleyball team. I remember I didn't get into medical school the first go round and I thought my life was over. And I thought, because I had no plan B. I mean,
Yes.
zero. I put everything in that. And then, but I learned it was a great learning experience because the next year I did get in. But it gave me so much tenacity to say, okay, what do you want to do here? Do you want to
Yes.
succeed, or are you just going to lay down and go, work at a local bakery? What do you want to
Yes.
do? And so it really gives you a lot of drive. And, even learning in little businesses you start as a kid, the first time you go out and somebody says, no, I don't want you to babysit, or no, you don't, I don't want you to mow my lawn or the root. It's so good for kids.
Yes.
Now, there's so much pressure on kids, as we're talking about, to get everything right. And a lot of parents feel really overwhelmed by a lot of financial advice out there. And a lot of parents like I said, want to do really well by their kids. They don't want to make the wrong move. They want to make really good financial decisions for their kids and help their kids. What is one small step that they can take today to just set their kids up for success in the future?
Yeah. Well, I would say, I'm really torn because there's two things that I really want them to teach. Well, one of them is setting up an investment account for them. And even if it's only $50, $20, just start it and have them sit there with you as you open it, right? Go to Charles Schwab or Fidelity or wherever you want to go to open an account, and just buy index funds, like S&P 500 index funds. Keep it simple. This is how I invest to this day. Like, there's no reason to get too creative,
Yeah,
like the work is pretty much done for you. Just let it be easy and start an account, and then have them check it every month and just watch and what happens with the money. Sometimes it'll go down, but most of the time, historically, it just consistently goes up. So they get to see that, and they get to see the separation of earning money from their labor. And I think that's really key, is like, oh, if I put money in there, if that was $100, it would have grown to this amount. And if that was more. And so then every time it's a birthday, or, if they earn money for something, they can put it in that account. And so teaching them to be investors at a very young age is critical. I didn't know how to invest until I was 35.
Yeah.
I did not learn this because my parents didn't have money to invest. They barely had enough to get by.
Yeah.
So this learning that skill, I think, is key. The other thing I would say too is, if kids want to do something, let's say they, it could be they want to buy a car, or they just want new roller skates. It doesn't matter, whatever, hopefully smaller things to start with. If they want to make $100 to buy new rollerblades, okay, great. Let me show you how you can earn $100, right? And like brainstorm with them. What's some things you could do to make money, And so I did this with my daughter, and she was like, well, I love to make jewelry. And so I'm like, okay, great. You can make jewelry. Who are you going to sell the jewelry to? And she was like, well, when your friends come to visit, and when everyone comes over for Thanksgiving, I could sell our family the jewelry. I was like, great, do it. And so she was ready. Thanksgiving came, and she had jewelry ready, and she was selling it to grandma and aunties. And of course, no one said no. She was adorable. And she
Exactly.
Jewelry.
Yeah.
So those two skill sets, I think, teaching them how to invest and teaching them how to earn money, like, just put your mind to it and say, there's nothing, you don't have to get a job. You don't have to do this other thing. What could you do with just your own skills to make money right now? And just brainstorming, just to teach them to learn that skill and have that knowledge, like, oh, I could make money, do whatever I want. I heard a story recently about a young guy. He wanted to make some extra money. He didn't know how to do it. He grew up in a low-income neighborhood, but he lived next door to Greenwich, Connecticut, which is a very nice neighborhood, you know?
Yeah.
And so he said, I'm going to do babysitting for the families in Greenwich, Connecticut. He's like, but I'm not going to be these boring babysitters. I'm going to come in and do sports with the kids and do all kinds of fun activities. And so he got one client. And of course, he did such a great job that then all these other clients, all these other families wanted him to come babysit because he was such a fun babysitter.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, he's making $4,000 a month babysitting,
Love
and
it.
he did, and then he created freedom for himself, went to school during the day, babysitted at night. So just teaching kids that, like, you can come up with a way to make money. I think just having that skill, it creates a lot of security for them because they know, if I get my back against the wall, I can come up with something as a way to make money.
A lot of people say, well, somebody's already out there doing it. Or, I always heard this, somebody's already written a book like that. And my approach has been, well, then do it better.
Yes.
If you find somebody who's already, you've got a neighborhood, they have a lot of babysitters, or somebody's written a book. Well, read it and figure out what's missing, or look at those babysitters, figure out what they're not doing, and offer a better service. So,
Yes.
sometimes you can just piggyback on somebody else's idea, but don't let it stop you. Let it, encourage you to go and figure out how you can add to that. And I think, that can really help. I just want to make a comment to the grandparents out there, because I've seen this happen.
Yes.
If your kids are helping their kids set aside money to buy a bike, or set aside money to buy a car, or set aside money to do something, don't, as the grandparent, come in and buy that thing for them.
Yes.
I've seen this happen. Oh, she really wants this doll and she's saving for it. They really want this bike and she's saving for it, but she's so cute and she's so small. I'm just going to get it for her. Don't do that, because it sabotages the lesson the parents are trying to teach. And
100%.
I shake my head, so honor your adult children's decisions they're doing with their own kids.
Yes. You know what? One thing I think the grandparents can do instead is, take some money and say, when you hit that goal to celebrate with you, I'm going to take that same amount and I'm going to invest it in your investment account.
There you go.
So that's something you could do to motivate them, get involved, but without coming in and saving the day, because then you rob the kid of the lesson, right? And the opportunity to build that. Because then when they do it, when they save that money and they go buy that thing, my son has went and got, his dinosaurs. My littlest is 6 years old. Mm-hmm. So he's like, let's go to the store. He wants to go to the local store, the toy store, to get, a dinosaur. And he hands over his money. He's so proud because he earned that money, even at 6. And so you don't want to rob them of the opportunity to get that win, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And when I say that, I'm sort of talking to myself too, because my kids are really good at having their kids save money for certain things. And I go, oh gosh, guys, it's $100 bike. Just let me buy it. And they're like, no, don't you dare do that. And you're absolutely right. And I haven't, but there's a temptation again, as a parent or grandparent, just make it easier for your kids. Don't have them struggle. But the struggle is so good.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. My guest has been Rachel Rodgers. She's the founder of Hello 7, and she's a Wall Street Journal best-selling author. She's built a great business helping women and kids and parents help their kids save and get onto the right track of learning how to earn money and take care of themselves and be independent as soon as they can. She's the author of We Should All Be Millionaires and the new book, Future Millionaires. She's on a mission to help people, especially those who are historically excluded, and she's helping them build real, lasting wealth. And she really knows what she's talking about, because she's a mom of 4 kids. I love, moms who are in the 4-kid club. They're going away. Everybody wants 2 kids. Her kids are ages 6 to 24. She's in the trenches, and she really knows what she's talking about. Rachel, thank you so much for coming on today. This has just been a blast.
Thank you so much for having me. And I just want to tell everybody, if you go to futuremillionairebook.com, you order 2 copies of the book, you get a free 5-day class that I'm teaching called Money Camp for you and the young adult in your life.
Hey parents, I'm Dr. Meg Meeker, and if you're ready for real solutions to your parenting problems from a pediatrician, join my Parenting Great Kids community today.
There's a reason so many parents trust Dr. Meg Meeker. Now her courses, parenting forum, and trusted answers are all in one place, the PGK Insider Community. Join free at meekerparenting.com.